I visited my son on his first day working at his father-in-law's company. I found him on his knees on the bathroom floor, wearing yellow rubber gloves, scrubbing a toilet. His new suit still hung on the door hook. His father-in-law stood behind him laughing. That's the only job this idiot knows how to do. A business degree. 35 years of my sacrifice. All to watch my son be humiliated like an animal. I said nothing, fighting back my rage. I walked out and made a phone call. 3 weeks later, they were screaming in horror at what I did. This isn't a story about revenge. This is a story about the price of dignity. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment. Where are you watching this from? And what time is it right now? I want to know how far this story about a father's fight for dignity has traveled. The kitchen smelled like strong coffee and bacon grease. I stood at the stove flipping eggs while Caleb sat fidgeting with his tie navy blue, expensive a gift from Morgan, his wife. He belonged in boardrooms, now not our little kitchen with its chipped countertop. You want more coffee? I asked. No thanks, Dad. I'm jittery enough. He laughed nervously. I want to make you proud. Ashford Development is one of the biggest firms in San Antonio. I know it is. I slid the eggs onto his plate. And you earned this position. Don't let anyone tell you different. He nodded, but I saw the doubt flickering behind his eyes. Caleb had always been that way. Brilliant, hardworking, but carrying some invisible weight that made him question his worth. I'd spent 28 years trying to build him up brick by careful brick. Your mom would have been so proud, I said quietly. His throat worked. I wish she could have seen it. She can. I tapped my chest. Right here. We ate in comfortable silence after that, the kind that comes from years of being each other's only family. When Caleb stood to leave, I walked him to the door. He grabbed his briefcase and turned back. Thanks for everything, Dad. For the breakfast, for working double shifts to pay my tuition, for... Hey! I gripped his shoulder. That's what fathers do. Now get out of here before you're late. He grinned nervousness, disappearing for a moment. Then he was gone, backing down the driveway in his Honda. I stood on the porch, watching that uneasy feeling settling deeper into my bones. I tried to shake it off. Washed the dishes, changed into work clothes. But the feeling wouldn't leave. It sat in my chest like a stone. I picked up my phone 3 times to call him, then put it down. He was a grown man. He didn't need his old man hovering. But I couldn't concentrate on the bid I needed to submit or the crew schedule. Finally, around 11, I made a decision. I'd swing by Ashford Development, maybe bring Caleb some lunch, just to check in. The building sat downtown, all glass and steel, the kind that screamed money and power. I parked my dusty work truck between a Mercedes and a BMW, feeling suddenly out of place. The lobby was marble floors and cold air conditioning. A young woman at the reception desk looked up with a professional smile. Her nameplate read, Amanda Foster. Good morning, sir. How can I help you? I'm looking for my son, Caleb Walker. He started today. The smile froze. Her eyes widened and something passed across her face. Pity, fear. She glanced toward the elevators, then back to me. Oh, Mr. Walker, let me just check on that for you. And in that moment, my gut feeling crystallized into certainty. Something was very, very wrong. Amanda stood up from her desk, one hand reaching toward me. Mr. Walker, maybe you should wait. But I was already past her, moving toward the elevators. Behind me, I heard her pick up the phone, her voice low and urgent. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor felt endless. My son had a business degree. Why would he be in maintenance on his first day? The doors opened to a sterile hallway. I followed the signs until I found a utility corridor. Voices echoed ahead, laughter, male voices. One of them made my skin crawl. I rounded the corner and stopped. Through the half-open door, I saw my son on his knees in front of a toilet, wearing yellow rubber gloves that went up to his elbows. His suit jacket hung on a hook. His white shirt was damp with sweat. He held a scrub brush, shoulders hunched in a way that made him look broken. Standing over him was a man in his early 50s, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my mortgage. 2 other men flanked him, smirking. This is the only service this idiot knows how to do? The silver-haired man's voice dripped with contempt. He's got a business degree and can't even scrub a toilet properly. The other men laughed. Then I saw her. Morgan stood off to the side in a designer dress, arms crossed. She wasn't laughing, but she wasn't stopping it either. The slight smile on her face made my stomach turn. Caleb looked up. Our eyes met. Time slowed down. Shame washed over his face. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. He tried to mouth something. Please, don't. I couldn't tell. But I understood. My boy was begging me not to see him like this. Something inside my chest cracked clean through. Can I help you? The silver-haired man turned toward me, irritated. I'm Caleb's father. His expression shifted to amusement. Ah, Mr. Walker. Your son is learning the business from the ground up. Literally. He gestured at the toilet, and his cronies chuckled. So this was Grayson Ashford. Caleb, I kept my voice steady. Get up. He's not finished. Grayson's voice sharpened. He's on company time. Every muscle in my body wanted to cross that room and put my fist through Grayson Ashford's perfect teeth. I'd spent 35 years swinging hammers. One punch. That's all it would take. But Caleb shook his head, just slightly. Don't make it worse. I forced my hands to unclench. We'll talk later, son. I looked at Grayson. You and I will talk too, Mr. Ashford. Grayson waved a dismissive hand. I'm a busy man. You'll make time. I walked back to the elevator before I did something I'd regret. The doors closed. I was alone. I pressed my palms against the cold metal walls and squeezed my eyes shut. No one gets to do this to my son. The lobby was a blur. Outside, the Texas sun hit me, but I felt cold. I sat in my truck, hands gripping the steering wheel. Then I pulled out my phone and dialed. Gerald, it's Jack Walker. I need your help. Something big. Jack, what's going on? You sound... I need you to investigate someone. Grayson Ashford. I want to know everything, his company, his finances, his weaknesses, everything. Gerald went quiet on the other end. We'd known each other 20 years. He knew I didn't ask for things like this lightly. How deep? He finally asked. As deep as it goes. Give me until tomorrow morning. I hung up and sat in my truck for another 10 minutes, staring at nothing. Then I drove home. The house felt too quiet. I paced the kitchen, trying to burn off the rage still simmering in my chest. On the mantel sat an old photo. Caleb at his college graduation cap and gown, that huge smile. Next to it, a picture of my wife, Maria, holding baby Caleb in her arms. I'd spent 28 years building my son up. 3 hours for Grayson Ashford to try to tear him down. Not just get Caleb out of there. That wasn't enough anymore. This required something bigger, something permanent. By 10 that night, I'd made my decision. I was sitting at the kitchen table when I heard a key in the lock. Caleb came through the door like a ghost, shoulders hunched, eyes down. The smell of cleaning chemicals clung to his clothes. When he saw me waiting, he tried to turn away, but I caught the red around his eyes. Come here, son. His face crumpled, just like that 28 years old, and he was crying like he used to when he was 7 and scraped his knee. I stood up and pulled him into my arms. It's not your fault, I said into his hair. None of this is your fault. He shook against my chest. I'm sorry you had to see that, Dad. I'm so sorry. You've got nothing to apologize for. We stood there until his breathing steadied. Then I guided him to the couch, the same one he used to fall asleep on watching cartoons. He sat down heavy, like his strings had been cut. Grayson said I'm learning from the bottom up, Caleb said quietly. Morgan said it's just temporary. But Dad, it's only been 3 hours and it feels like forever. My jaw tightened. How long is this supposed to last? He said, 6 weeks. Then I'll get a real position. Caleb's voice was hollow. If I can prove myself? 6 weeks. I filed that number away. Listen to me, Caleb. I leaned forward, hands clasped between my knees. Can you hold on a little longer? Can you trust me? He looked up confused. What do you mean? Just trust me. Keep your head down. Do what he says. And in a few weeks, everything's going to change. Dad, what are you... Trust me. Something in my voice must have convinced him because he nodded slowly. The next morning, my phone rang at 7. Gerald. Jack, I did some preliminary digging on Ashford Development. You're going to want to hear this. I poured myself coffee, phone pressed to my ear. I'm listening. The company's drowning in debt. Bad investments, over-leveraged properties, the works. If someone doesn't bail them out in the next 3 months, they're done. I stared out the kitchen window at the sunrise painting the sky orange and pink. Maria used to love sunrises. Done how? Bankrupt, liquidation, game over. A cold smile spread across my face. Then I guess someone should rescue them. Gerald spread the documents across the table at Mi Tierra Cafe, the smell of fresh tortillas and coffee filling the air around us. It was early morning, the restaurant just starting to fill with breakfast crowds. He'd chosen a corner booth, away from listening ears. Ashford Development is bleeding money, he said, tapping a spreadsheet. $12 million in debt. 2 failed projects in Houston and Dallas. The banks are circling, and Grayson's got maybe 90 days before they call everything in. I studied the numbers. Gerald had been thorough property assessments, loan documents, vendor contracts, Everything laid bare. He lives like he's rich. Gerald continued sliding over another page. But the mansion's mortgaged to the hilt. The cars are leased. It's all smoke and mirrors, Jack. One strong wind and the whole thing collapses. How much would it take to buy him out? Gerald looked up sharply. You're talking about 7, maybe 8 million to acquire the majority stake and assume control. He paused. Jack, that's serious money. I have it. His eyes widened. You what? 35 years of living small, Gerald. I bought rental properties during the 2008 crash when everyone else was running scared. I invested in stocks when they were dirt cheap. I drove the same truck for 15 years. I met his eyes. I lived small so Caleb could live big someday. That's your retirement, your entire life savings. Money grows back, dignity doesn't. Over the next 3 weeks, I watched my son endure hell while I built my war machine. Week 1. Caleb scrubbed toilets while Grayson inspected his work like a drill sergeant, making him start over for imaginary streaks. Week 2, he ate lunch alone in the break room until Thomas Reynolds, an older maintenance worker, sat down beside him. Don't let them break you, kid, Thomas had said. Caleb told me about it during one of our brief phone calls, his voice grateful for even that small kindness. Week 3, Grayson paraded him in front of potential clients. This is my son-in-law, he'd announced with a smirk, learning humility from the ground up. At home, Morgan fed him lies. Dad says you're doing well, just a few more weeks. And Caleb, my trusting boy, believed her. He told himself he could endure it. For her. For their future. It made my chest ache. While Caleb suffered, I moved. I liquidated properties, cashed in investments, met with bankers. Gerald created a shell company, Rio Grande Investment Group, and we recruited 3 business associates to serve as the public faces. James Porter, Benjamin Clark, and Anthony Lewis. Good men who owed me favors and asked no questions. Grayson can't know it's you, Gerald reminded me. Not until the papers are signed. He won't. Friday night of week 3, my phone rang. Caleb. His voice was strained. Dad, there's a big meeting Monday. Important clients from Dallas. Grayson wants me to serve coffee, like a waiter. My hand tightened around the phone. I could picture it, my son in his suit, carrying a tray, while Grayson's clients smirked. Another humiliation. Another test. You can do this, son. Just a little longer, I promise. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my kitchen for a long moment. Then I called Gerald. Send the offer, now. He needs to see an exit before Monday. Jack, are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. There was a pause on the other end. Then quietly, all right. I'll have it on his desk by morning. I hung up and stared at the photo of Maria on the mantel. 35 years of work. Every dollar I'd saved, every sacrifice I'd made. All of it about to be spent in one move. But if I could buy my son his dignity back, it would be worth every penny. Monday morning, 9 a.m. I stood in the Ashford Development Conference Room wearing a yellow janitor's uniform that Grayson had handed me an hour earlier. 6 businessmen from Dallas sat around the polished table, expensive suits, and confident smiles. I was holding a coffee pot, my hands shaking. Coffee, gentlemen. My voice came out smaller than I intended. One of them looked up at me, confused. Who's this? Grayson leaned back in his chair, that familiar smirk spreading across his face. Oh, that's my son-in-law. Teaching him the family business from the lowest foundation possible. He paused for effect. Builds character. The men chuckled. I felt my face burn. I moved around the table pouring coffee. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When I reached the third man, the pot slipped. Coffee splashed across the table, soaking his papers. Jesus, the man yelped, jumping back. Grayson's face turned red. You can't even do this, right? He pointed at the floor. Get a towel. Clean it up. Now. I grabbed a towel from the service cart, got down on my knees. Again, like I'd done for 3 weeks, wiping up my own mistake while 6 strangers watched. See what I have to deal with, Grayson said to his clients, shaking his head. My daughter married a man with no backbone. The door opened. Morgan walked in. She'd been scheduled to join the meeting. She saw me on the floor, towel in hand, surrounded by laughing businessmen. Our eyes met. She looked away, not with sympathy, with embarrassment. She was ashamed of me. Something inside me snapped. I stood up, slowly. The towel fell from my hands. Say something, I said to her. My voice was quiet but steady. Caleb, don't make a scene. Say something. She glanced at her father, then back at me. Not here. I quit. The room went silent. Grayson's smirk vanished. What? I quit. Louder this time. I've had enough. I pulled off the yellow uniform shirt and dropped it on the floor. Underneath, I wore just a plain t-shirt. I walked toward the door. "Caleb, you can't just—" Morgan started. "Watch me." I was halfway to my car when I heard heels clicking behind me. Morgan caught up, grabbing my arm. "Caleb, wait. You're embarrassing me." I turned to face her. "I'm embarrassing you. My father gave you an opportunity. You just threw it away. Your father was humiliating me. And you let him." Her expression hardened. "You're weak. You're just like your father. You'll never be more than working class." The words hung in the air between us. For 3 weeks, I'd told myself she loved me, that this was temporary, that we were building a future together. "You're right," I said quietly. "I'm just like my dad. His calloused hands have more integrity than your entire family in their designer suits." I got in my car and drove away. 10 minutes later, sitting in a parking lot somewhere, I called my father. My hands were still shaking. "Dad, I quit. I couldn't take it anymore." "Come home, son. I'm sorry, I failed." His voice was firm. "No, Caleb, you just won." I didn't understand what he meant, but something in his tone steadied me. I hung up and pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. Back at my house, I set down the phone and immediately dialed Gerald. "Change of plan. I want that offer on Grayson's desk today, and I want the meeting this week." "Jack, we're not ready." "Make us ready. It's time to end this." The FedEx envelope arrived at 4 p.m. marked urgent. Grayson tore it open at his desk, Douglas Fairfax and Lawrence Bennett watching from across the mahogany surface. "Rio Grande Investment Group," Grayson read aloud. His eyes scanned the letterhead, Austin address, professional formatting. The letter was direct intent to purchase 60% of Ashford Development Corporation for $8 million. Cash offer. 72-hour response deadline. Douglas leaned forward, reading over Grayson's shoulder. "They're legitimate. Austin-based. Tech and real estate investors. I can verify them." "Who are they?" Grayson's voice was sharp. Lawrence cleared his throat. "Sir, with respect, we need this." Grayson's jaw tightened. "Explain." The accountant slid a spreadsheet across the desk. "We have $3 million due to the banks next month. Another $2 million in contractor liens. Payroll's already 2 weeks late. Without an injection of capital. I know the situation, Lawrence. Then you know we're out of options." Douglas's tone was careful. "If you don't take this offer, the bank forecloses. You lose everything. At least this way you keep 40% and the company survives." Grayson stood walking to the window overlooking downtown San Antonio. His father had started this company 40 years ago. He'd built it into something powerful. And now some faceless investors from Austin wanted to take it from him. His phone rang. Douglas picked it up, listened, then held it out. "It's them. Rio Grande." Grayson took the phone. "This is Ashford. Mr. Ashford Gerald Morrison with Rio Grande Investment Group." The voice was professional, cool. "I trust you received our offer." "I did. I need time to consider. We're prepared to move quickly, but we have other opportunities if you're not interested. Who's behind your group? I want names. Confidential investors. Standard practice. You'll meet them if you accept the terms." A pause. 48 hours, Mr. Ashford. That's all you have. Your letter said 72. We're expediting. 48 hours or we move on. The door opened. Cecilia walked in designer dress and worried eyes. She must have heard from someone downstairs. "What's happening?" Grayson covered the phone. "Investment offer. They want to buy majority control." "How much?" $8 million. Her face showed relief, not concern. "Take it. I don't want to lose this house." Grayson looked at his wife, then at Douglas and Lawrence. Both men nodded. He uncovered the phone. "I want to meet them, in person." "That can be arranged." "Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Hotel Emma private conference room." "We'll be there." The line went dead. Grayson set down the phone and sank into his chair, feeling suddenly older than his 52 years. Across town, Gerald Morrison hung up the phone and turned to the man sitting across from him at a small table. Jack Walker sat with his hands folded, his expression calm. "Done. Thursday morning you'll face him." Jack's voice was quiet. "Good, let's finish this." I stood in the adjoining room listening through the audio feed Gerald had set up. The blue button-down shirt I wore wasn't designer, but I felt more powerful than any suit in that room. Today wasn't about money. It was about truth. Through the speaker, I heard Grayson arrive at 10 sharp. Professional greetings, chair scraping, coffee being poured. "Gentlemen, I appreciate your interest in Ashford Development." Grayson's voice tried for confidence, but I heard the strain underneath. James Porter spoke first. "We've done extensive due diligence, Mr. Ashford. Your company has Significant challenges. Temporary setbacks. The fundamentals remain strong. Benjamin Clark's voice was flat. The fundamentals are $12 million in debt, 2 failed projects and contractor liens. I heard Douglas Fairfax Grayson's lawyer intervene. My client is aware of the situation. That's why we're here. Anthony Lewis laid out the terms. Our offer is $8 million for 60% ownership. You continue as a consultant. $80,000 annual salary. Consultant. Grayson's voice rose. That's my company. Gerald's voice cut through cold and professional. It was your company. If you don't sign today in 30 days, it'll be the bank's company. Silence. I imagined Grayson's face pride warring with desperation. We need a decision, Mr. Ashford, James said. We have other opportunities. Through the feed, I heard Grayson whisper to his lawyer. Douglas's response was quiet but clear. Take it. It's the best you'll get. Probably the only offer you'll get. More silence. Then Grayson, I want $10 million. $8.2 million. Final offer. The silence stretched. Then Lawrence Bennett, the accountant, whispered, Sir, please. Grayson's voice came out defeated. Fine. 8.2. Excellent, Gerald said. However, there's one detail my client wants to address personally. Client, I thought these three... We represent a primary investor, James said. He wants to meet you before signing. I heard Gerald stand. Footsteps. Then 3 sharp knocks on the connecting door. I opened it and stepped through. The room was exactly what I'd imagined. Polished table leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking San Antonio. 6 men in expensive suits turned to look at me. Work boots, jeans, button-down shirt. I looked like I'd walked off a job site. I was exactly where I belonged. Grayson squinted at me. Do I know you? We met once, briefly, in your building 3 weeks ago. I watched recognition flicker across his face. You're Caleb's father. That's right. He laughed nervously. What is this, some kind of joke? Gerald stood beside me. No joke, Mr. Ashford. Allow me to introduce the primary investor of Rio Grande Investment Group, Jack Walker. Grayson's face went through a progression, confusion, disbelief, horror. No, this is insane. You're a construction worker. Owner, small company but profitable, 35 years of savings, smart investments, living small. I pulled out a chair and sat down. While you were leasing luxury cars and mortgaging mansions, I was building something real. Grayson turned to his lawyer. This can't be legal. Douglas reviewed the documents spread before him. It's completely legal, sir. I won't sell my company to him. Then don't, I said calmly. Walk away. In 30 days, lose everything. Your choice. Why, his voice cracked. Why are you doing this? I leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. 3 weeks ago, I walked into your building. I found my son with a business degree. My son, I sacrificed everything to educate on his knees scrubbing your toilet. I was teaching him. You were breaking him. You called him worthless. You humiliated him in front of employees' clients, his own wife. My voice stayed level, but I felt the rage simmering underneath. You paraded him like a trained dog. You made him serve coffee in a janitor's uniform. He was too sensitive. No, you were too cruel. And now you're going to learn what it feels like to lose everything. Please. Desperation leaked into his voice. This company is my life. My father built this. And you destroyed it, not me. Your greed, your arrogance, your cruelty, I just helped it along. What do you want from me? Sign the papers, walk away, and never speak to my son again. Gerald slid the contract across the table. Grayson stared at it like it might burn him. Oh, and one more thing, I said. Your daughter. She needs to file for divorce. Caleb deserves better. Grayson looked up, anger flashing. You can't. I can, and I will sign. His hand trembled as he picked up the pen. I watched him sign page after page, his signature getting shakier with each one. Douglas notarized. Gerald collected the documents. It was done. I'll sue, Grayson said, voice hollow. I'll fight this. Go ahead, Gerald replied. You'll lose, and waste what little money you have left. I stood to leave. At the door I paused. By the way, Caleb starts as CEO Monday morning. You'll report to him regarding your consultant duties, if you choose to stay. Grayson's head snapped up. You're serious? Completely. Clean out your office. My son's moving in. I walked out into the hallway. The door closed behind me. For the first time in 3 weeks, I let myself breathe. Gerald followed me out. Jack, that was justice, I said quietly. That was justice. He nodded. What now? I looked out the window at the city where I'd raised my son, where I'd built my business from nothing, where I'd just bought an $8 million company with the savings of a lifetime. Now I said, let's tell Caleb he has a company to run. When I got home Thursday afternoon, Caleb was on the couch staring at the television without really watching it. He'd been like that for 4 days. Lost, directionless. His marriage was over. His job was over. He thought everything was over. Son, get dressed. We need to go somewhere. He looked up confused. Where? You'll see. In the truck heading downtown, he finally asked, Dad, where are we going? Ashford Development. What? No, I'm not going back there. You are, but not as a janitor. I told him everything. The investigation. Gerald. The phantom investors. The $8 million buyout. Thursday's meeting. Grayson signing with trembling hands. He went silent, staring out the window as San Antonio passed by. Finally, his voice cracked. Dad, you spent your entire life savings for me. Not for revenge, son, for justice. There's a difference. What happens now? I pulled into the Ashford parking lot and put the truck in park. Now you show them who you really are? Amanda looked up from the reception desk as we walked in. Her eyes went wide, then filled with tears. Amanda, this is your new CEO, Caleb Walker. She came around the desk and hugged him. I'm so glad. I'm so sorry I didn't. It's okay. None of this was your fault. We took the elevator to the executive floor. Grayson's office, Caleb's office, now had been cleared out. Empty desk, bare walls. Caleb walked to the window and looked out at the city. You ready? I asked. He nodded. The conference room was packed. 80 employees, anxious and uncertain. I stood at the front with Caleb beside me. This is Caleb Walker, your new CEO. Some of you know him. Some of you witnessed. Things that should never have happened. That ends today. I stepped back. Caleb stepped forward. 3 weeks ago, I was on my knees in this building scrubbing toilets. Some of you saw. Some of you looked away. I don't blame you. I understand fear. I felt it every day. His voice got stronger. But the fear ends now. This company will be different. You'll be treated with dignity. All of you, from maintenance to executive. He paused, looked at me, then back at them. My father taught me something. How you treat people when you have power shows who you really are. The man who ran this company before showed you cruelty. I'll show you respect. If you want to stay, you're welcome. If you want to leave, I understand. But if you stay, we'll build something better. Together. The applause started hesitant, then grew genuine. An older man approached Thomas Reynolds' maintenance. Mr. Walker, I was there. When your father-in-law... He stopped. I wanted to say something. I'm sorry I didn't. Caleb shook his hand. You're saying something now. That's what matters. Later alone in the office, Caleb sat at the desk. I don't know if I can do this. You already did the hard part. You survived. Now you just lead. I hugged him and left him there. Through the door window, I watched him open a desk drawer and pull out a photo, the two of us at his college graduation. He smiled. All right, Dad, let's build something. 6 months later, Ashford Development, renamed Walker and Associates Development, was turning a profit. But this isn't a story about bitter revenge. It's about rebuilding with dignity. Caleb transformed the company. Fair wages, respect at every level. Thomas Reynolds, the maintenance worker who'd shown him kindness, became a supervisor. The biggest change. 2 affordable housing projects on the west side, the same neighborhood where I'd raised him. Building homes for people, not just profit. His divorce from Morgan finalized quickly. The prenup protected him. She got nothing. She remarried fast, another wealthy man, older this time. Just another transaction. Caleb met Olivia Brooks at a construction site. She was the architect on our West Side project. Their first conversation was about building codes, not status. When she met me, she smiled. Caleb talks about you constantly. He says you're his hero. I'm just his dad? Later, she told him, he's not like them. He's real. They moved in together after 6 months. Serious. Built on truth, not performance. As for Grayson, he lost the mansion to foreclosure. Lives in a small apartment now. Cecilia divorced him. Morgan rarely calls. He lasted 2 weeks as a consultant, couldn't stomach taking orders from Caleb. Quit out of pride. Now he freelances, struggles to find work. His sister Charlotte called me once. Thank you. He destroyed me 2 years ago. I'm glad someone finally stopped him. I saw him at a grocery store, older, tired, alone. Our eyes met. I nodded. He looked away. I felt no satisfaction, just completion. I retired at 62. Still live in the same small house. Caleb visits. Every Sunday brings Olivia. I make breakfast. Some traditions are worth keeping. People ask if I regret spending $8.2 million. I don't. Money grows back. Dignity doesn't. They ask if it was revenge. It wasn't. I didn't destroy Grayson, he destroyed himself. I just accelerated the process. Revenge is hurting someone back. Justice is restoring balance. Here's what I learned. Wealth isn't what you have. It's what you're willing to give up for the people you love. I think about Maria sometimes. Honey, if you're watching, our boy made it. He's happy, successful, and kind. We did good. Last Sunday over breakfast, Caleb set down his coffee. Dad, Olivia and I are engaged. I couldn't speak, just stood and hugged them both, tears running down my face. Olivia took my hands. We want you to walk me down the aisle. My father wasn't in my life. You're the father figure I always wanted. I looked at them planning a future together, laughing, genuinely happy. This is wealth. This is success. 5 years ago, a rich man taught me something. The tallest towers fall the hardest. But he taught my son something more important. Your value isn't determined by how others treat you. It's determined by how you treat yourself. Caleb could have stayed, could have endured, but he chose dignity, and that choice saved him. Looking back at this true story, I see my mistakes clearly now. I waited 3 weeks before acting. 3 weeks while my son suffered. Don't be like me, don't wait for proof. If you see someone you love being destroyed, trust your instincts. I also almost let anger guide me. I wanted revenge, not justice. The difference revenge would have made me just like Grayson. Justice restored what was broken. That's the lesson these grandpa stories should teach. Your response to cruelty defines you more than the cruelty itself. Here's what this true story taught me. Dignity isn't given by others, it's chosen by you. Caleb chose to walk away. That choice saved him. Money, I'd spend it again tomorrow. Because wealth isn't your bank account. It's Sunday mornings with people you love. Don't be like me and measure success by dollars. I worked 35 years chasing financial security, but God showed me the real treasure was always sitting at my breakfast table. These grandpa stories aren't just mine. They're yours too. Every parent protecting their child. Every worker standing up to a bully. Every person choosing dignity over comfort. This true story happened because I finally understood love isn't passive. It fights. It sacrifices. It transforms. If these grandpa stories meant something to you, I'd be grateful if you'd share them. Maybe someone you know is on their knees right now scrubbing someone else's toilet. Maybe they need to hear you deserve better. Walk away. Choose dignity. Comment below. What would you have done differently? Subscribe if you believe stories like these matter. Your dignity is all you really have. Protect it. At my daughter's wedding, her groom called me a pathetic beggar in front of 200 guests. People who don't contribute don't eat, he announced. Laughter erupted across the ballroom. 200 people stared at me. The broke father, the warehouse worker in a borrowed suit, the man who didn't belong. I stood to leave. I couldn't take another second of this humiliation. That's when a hand touched my shoulder. A stranger in a $10,000 suit. Silver hair. Eyes that had seen things. He whispered, "Pretend you're with me. Trust me." What he said next left the entire room speechless with shock. If you're watching this right now, comment below. Where are you from, and what time is it? Let me know you're listening. But let me back up. The Grand Harbor Hotel sits on the edge of the bay, all glass and gleaming chandeliers. I arrived at 6:30, my hands shaking as I straightened the borrowed tie. Emily had sent the invitation 3 weeks ago, but she hadn't called, hadn't visited. Still, I came. Inside the ballroom was white tablecloths and gold-rimmed china. Flowers spilled from crystal vases. A string quartet played in the corner. I searched for Emily's face, but saw only strangers in designer suits. People who belonged. I didn't. A woman with a clipboard found me. "Miller, table 18. She pointed toward the back, past the dance floor. Table 18 was 3 feet from the kitchen door. The clatter of dishes echoed around me. The other seats were empty. I sat down, my cheap suit itching, and tried to disappear. Waiters passed by with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres, but none stopped at my table. My plate stayed empty. That's when I heard her voice. Well, well, I suppose even the help needs somewhere to sit. Diane Whitmore stood beside me, diamonds catching the light, her smile sharp as broken glass. Her husband Victor loomed behind her, amused. "Mrs. Whitmore," I said, standing. "It's nice to meet you. Emily's told us plenty about you, Mr. Miller. A warehouse worker, wasn't it, retired on disability?" She said it like the words tasted bad. My face burned. "Yes, ma'am. I had an accident." "How tragic." Her tone said otherwise. Victor chuckled. Well, I'm sure Emily appreciates you making the effort, even if you're not exactly dressed for the occasion. They walked away. I sat back down, fists clenched, staring at the empty plate. Then Brandon took the stage. He looked like a movie star under the spotlight, his tuxedo perfect, his smile bright. Emily stood beside him in her wedding gown, her hand tucked into his elbow. She looked beautiful, nervous. Ladies and gentlemen, Brandon began, his voice booming, thank you all for being here tonight. He named his parents, his best man, his business partners. The applause was deafening. Then his eyes found me. And of course, I should acknowledge my new father-in-law, Paul Miller. Stand up, Paul. Let everyone see you. My stomach dropped. 200 faces turned toward me. I stood slowly. Paul couldn't afford to help with the wedding? Brandon continued, false sympathy dripping from his voice. In fact, Emily had to pay for his suit tonight. But hey, we all come from different backgrounds, right? Some of us just happen to come from humbler circumstances. Very humble. Pathetically humble, you might say. He paused, his smile widening. I noticed Paul's table is a bit empty. No food, no champagne. I suppose we forgot to include him in the catering count. Laughter erupted. Don't worry, Paul. I'm sure the staff will bring you some leftovers after everyone else is served. Emily's face went pale, her eyes wide with horror. But she didn't say anything, didn't move. Brandon raised his glass. To family, all kinds of family. The room erupted in applause. I couldn't breathe. The laughter echoed in my ears. I turned toward the exit, shoving my chair back, vision blurring. I needed to leave before I broke down in front of these people. That's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned. A man stood beside me, tall and composed, his suit perfectly cut. His hair was silver at the temples, his eyes sharp. He looked at me like he knew me, like he'd been waiting. He leaned in close. Paul, he said, pretend you're with me. Trust me. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know why he was helping me. But when he wrapped his arm around my shoulders like we were old friends, something in his calm, steady voice made me want to believe him. Before I could speak, he turned to face the crowd, his hand still resting on my shoulder. The room had gone silent after Brandon's toast, the laughter dying down to scattered whispers. Every eye was on us. Ladies and gentlemen, the man said, his voice carrying across the ballroom without effort. I apologize for the interruption, but I couldn't let this moment pass without saying something. He looked like he belonged in this room more than anyone else. His suit was impeccable charcoal gray, with a subtle sheen, his silver cufflinks catching the light. His hair was dark, with silver at the temples, his jaw sharp, his eyes intelligent and commanding. When he smiled, it was the kind of smile that made people lean in and listen. My name is Alexander Cross, he said. I'm the CEO of Cross Industries, and I've been looking for Paul Miller for a very long time. The whispers grew louder. I heard someone gasp. Brandon's smile had frozen on his face. Victor and Diane stood near the head table, their expressions somewhere between confusion and alarm. Alexander's grip on my shoulder tightened, reassuring. 20 years ago, Paul saved my life. The room erupted in murmurs. I felt every eye shift back to me, but this time it was different. This time they were looking at me like I mattered. I was a young man then. Alexander continued, his voice softening just enough to draw people in. Fresh out of business school, working late at a warehouse in Queens. There was a fire. Faulty wiring, they said later. The sprinklers didn't work. The smoke was so thick I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. Paul Miller was a forklift operator on the night shift. He could have run. He should have run. But instead, he came back for me, dragged me out through the smoke, burned his hands on a metal door handle, and didn't leave my side until the paramedics arrived. My throat tightened. I remembered that night. Remembered the heat, the smoke, the sound of Alexander, though I hadn't known his name, then coughing and choking in the dark. I'd done what anyone would do. I'd never expected to see him again. I've been looking for Paul ever since, Alexander said, his voice firm, now commanding. Because a man who risks his life for a stranger is the kind of man the world needs more of. The kind of man I'm proud to call my friend. He raised his glass still untouched from someone's tray and turned to face me. To Paul Miller, a true hero. The room hesitated for only a moment. Then one by one glasses rose. Applause began tentative at first, then growing louder. I stood there frozen, my face burning for an entirely different reason now. Brandon's expression had gone from smug to stony. Victor looked like he'd swallowed something sour. Diane's lips pressed into a thin, tight line. Emily was staring at me from the head table, her eyes wide, tears glistening on her cheeks. I wanted to go to her. I wanted to explain. But Alexander's hand was still on my shoulder, guiding me gently toward the side exit. "Come with me, Paul," he said quietly, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "We need to talk. Now." I followed him out of the ballroom, past the murmuring guests, past the shocked faces of the Whitmores. My heart was pounding, my mind spinning. Outside the terrace was quiet, the cool night air, a shock after the heat of the ballroom. The lights of the bay glittered in the distance. Alexander turned to face me, his expression no longer smiling. His eyes were serious, urgent. "Paul," he said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "your daughter is in danger. Real danger." "What danger?" I grabbed his arm, my voice cracking. "Alexander, what are you talking about?" He glanced back toward the ballroom, then pulled out his phone. His expression was grave. "Paul, how much do you know about Brandon Whitmore?" "Not much. Emily met him 6 months ago. She said he was successful. I thought he was good for her." Alexander's jaw tightened. "I've been investigating the Whitmore family for the past year. Money laundering, tax fraud. Nothing I could prove yet, but enough to know they're dangerous." He swiped through his phone. 2 months ago, Brandon's name came up in connection with Emily. That's when I started digging deeper. My hands were shaking. "Why would you be looking into Emily?" "Because of you. Your settlement. $15 million for your warehouse injury. It's been tied up in litigation for 3 years, but it's coming through. Any day now." The world tilted. 15 million. After all this time, after the accident that destroyed my back and ended my career, the money was finally real. But how did Brandon know? "Emily told him," Alexander said, reading my face. "She didn't know any better. She thought she was in love." I shook my head. "Even if he knows Emily's not getting any of it, it's my settlement." Alexander's expression darkened. 3 weeks ago, Brandon had Emily sign something. He told her it was insurance paperwork for after the wedding. My stomach dropped. It wasn't insurance, Paul. It was a financial power of attorney. The moment your money arrives, it becomes hers. And the moment it becomes hers, it becomes his. "No." The word came out strangled. "She wouldn't sign something like that without telling me. She didn't know what she was signing. Brandon buried it in legitimate documents. She trusted him." I gripped the terrace railing, the cold metal biting into my palms. "So he takes the money and divorces her." Alexander was silent for a moment too long. "What?" I demanded. "What aren't you telling me?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "This isn't Brandon's first time. I found 2 other women. Jessica Martinez in 2019, Rachel Bennett in 2021. Same pattern. Fast courtship, marriage, financial documents, signed under false pretenses." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear him. She disappeared before the case went to trial. No one's seen her in 2 years. I couldn't breathe. "You think Brandon—" "I don't know what happened to Rachel, but I know Brandon walked away from both situations a very rich man, and I know your daughter is next." "No." I pushed off the railing, my legs weak. "I'll talk to her. I'll tell her to tear up whatever she signed. If you go to her now, Brandon will know. He'll move the money faster, or he'll take Emily somewhere you can't reach her. We need to be smart about this." "Smart?" I laughed, bitter and desperate. "My daughter married a con man, maybe worse. I want you to save her life." The words hit me like a punch. I stared at him, searching his face for any sign he was wrong. He wasn't. Alexander leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. "Once they have the money, Emily becomes disposable. Show me." My voice came out hoarse. "Everything." Alexander pulled a tablet from his jacket. A woman's face appeared. Dark hair, kind eyes, smiling. Jessica Martinez, 28, real estate agent in Phoenix. Met Brandon on a dating app in 2019. Married 4 months later. He swiped to a wedding photo. Her parents died when she was 25. Left her $8 million. I couldn't look away. Brandon told her they'd start an investment company. Had her sign partnership documents. They were power of attorney forms. 3 weeks after the wedding, the money was gone. Brandon was gone. My stomach turned. Alexander swiped again. A news headline, "Local woman dies by suicide after financial fraud." 6 months later, Jessica took a bottle of pills. Left a note mentioning Brandon's name. His voice was flat. His lawyers buried her family in motions. By the time anyone could build a case, she was dead. And no one arrested him. I felt sick. They couldn't prove fraud. He swiped to another photo. blonde hair, confident smile. Rachel Bennett, 34, marketing executive in Seattle. Met Brandon at a charity gala in 2021. Married 5 months later in Cabo. She'd sold her startup the year before. $12 million. The pattern was unmistakable. Brandon told her about a real estate investment. Had her sign authorization forms. Same scam. 3 weeks after the wedding, everything disappeared. But Rachel fought back. Hired investigators threatened to go public. Alexander paused. And I asked? 2 weeks after she filed her lawsuit, Rachel vanished. Apartment locked from inside, but she was gone. No forced entry. No body. His eyes met mine. That was 2 years ago. No one's seen or heard from Rachel Bennett since. The terrace spun. 2 women. 8 million, 12 million, 1 dead, 1 missing. How is he not in prison? My voice shook. His family has lawyers. Connections. Alexander's jaw tightened. Without a body, police couldn't charge anyone. Brandon had an alibi. I gripped the tablet knuckles, white. Jessica's face. Rachel's face. Both young, both successful, both destroyed. Emily is just like them. The realization crushed me. Successful, trusting. Yes, with access to $15 million. What do we do? The FBI has been investigating the Whitmore family. Money laundering, fraud. They need evidence and a witness. Alexander's hand landed on my shoulder. I have a contact, but we have to move fast. Your settlement could come through any day. Once that money transfers to Emily Brandon, we'll act. We might have a week, maybe less. A week to save my daughter. I handed the tablet back, hands shaking. I wouldn't let Emily become the third face. Tell me what to do, whatever it takes. We approach Emily, carefully. If Brandon thinks we're onto him, he'll take her, like Rachel. Exactly. Alexander glanced toward the ballroom, where music still played, where my daughter celebrated with a man who planned to destroy her. We have to move fast, Paul, before the money comes through. I had to talk to Emily. Tonight. I left the hotel and pulled out my phone. She'd answer. She had to. The phone rang 3 times. Hello? My heart sank. Brandon's voice. I need to talk to Emily. She's sleeping, Paul. It's been a long day. Call tomorrow. Wake her up. This is important. She needs her rest. Good night, Paul. The line went dead. I got in my car and drove. Emily's apartment was 20 minutes away. I parked out front and ran to the entrance, taking the stairs 2 at a time. When I reached her door, I knocked hard. Footsteps. The lock turned. The door opened 6 inches, held by a chain. Brandon's face appeared in the gap. Paul, what are you doing here? I need to talk to Emily now. She's resting. You need to leave. Emily, I called past him into the apartment. Emily, it's Dad. Movement behind him. Emily appeared in the hallway, wrapped in a bathrobe, hair loose. She looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed, her face pale. Dad. Her voice was small. What are you doing here? Sweetheart, I need to talk to you. It's important. She took a step forward, but Brandon moved between us, his hand resting on her arm, not grabbing, just resting there. A gentle touch that somehow looked like a chain. Honey, go back inside, Brandon said softly. Your dad's just worried. You know how he gets. Emily's eyes met mine for just a second. I saw fear, exhaustion, a silent plea. Then Brandon's hand tightened just slightly, and she looked away. I'm okay, Dad. Just tired. It's been a long day. Emily, please. Good night, Paul. Brandon stepped back, pulling Emily with him. The door swung shut. The lock clicked, then the deadbolt. I stood there, staring at the closed door, fists clenched. I wanted to break it down, but I couldn't. Brandon was her husband. This was their home. I was powerless. Back in my car, I texted Emily. Emily, this is urgent. Brandon is not who you think he is. The insurance papers you signed were financial documents. Please call me when you're alone. I love you. I waited. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. I'm fine, Dad. Just tired. We'll talk soon. I read it 3 times. It was wrong? Too short. Too formal. Emily always signed her texts with a heart emoji. Always called me Daddy, not Dad. This wasn't Emily. This was Brandon. At home, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my bed, phone in hand, checking it every few minutes. The hours crawled by. Midnight. 1 a.m. At 2:03 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A new message from Emily. I'm scared. 2 words. No punctuation, no emoji. My blood ran cold. I tried to call. Voicemail. I texted back. Where are you? Are you safe? No response. I called again. Voicemail. Emily, answer me, please. Nothing. I sat in the dark, my phone clutched in both hands, my daughter's words burning into my brain. I'm scared. I hadn't slept. Every time I close my eyes, Emily's texts flash behind them. I'm scared. 2 words that dug into my spine and refused to let go. At 6:30, I gave up. I pulled on yesterday's clothes, grabbed my keys, and stepped into the cold hallway. I needed coffee. I needed air. I needed to think before panic finished eating me alive. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few scattered cars and a black Mercedes idling near the exit. I barely noticed it until the driver's door opened and a man stepped out as if he'd been waiting for me. Victor Whitmore. Tall, silver-haired, immaculate suit, every inch the kind of man who lived in boardrooms and believed the world should move out of his way. He approached with practiced confidence. "Paul Miller," he said, smooth as polished steel. "We need to talk." My stomach nodded. "How did you know I'd be here?" "I know many things, Paul." He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "For instance, I know you've been making a nuisance of yourself, calling my daughter-in-law, showing up uninvited." "She's my daughter." Victor's smile never reached his eyes. "She is Brandon's wife, legally, and you need to back off." "Not until I know she's safe." "Safe?" He tilted his head. "From her husband, you sound paranoid. Unstable. That's what people will say after your behavior last night." Anger rose in my throat. "I know what Brandon is, and what you are." "Is that so? Tell me, Paul, what do you think you know?" "I know about Jessica Martinez, Rachel Bennett." For a split second, something dark, cold, sharp cut through his expression. Then it vanished, replaced by that false, calm smile. "You've been talking to someone," he said quietly. "Very unwise." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened the message. Ice poured through my veins. A photo of Emily, asleep, hair spread across her pillow, one arm under her cheek. The angle was too close. Taken from inside her apartment. Timestamp 3:07 a.m. This morning. Victor's voice sliced through the ringing in my ears. "We know where Emily is. Always. And we know where you are. Always. You sick. Choose your next words carefully." He stepped closer. "This is a courtesy. A warning. Stop digging into matters that don't concern you. Or you will regret it. If you hurt her, you'll." What he laughed low and cold. "You're nobody. A warehouse worker with a failing back and no resources. We have lawyers. Connections. We have everything we need to make your life very short." He let the threat settle heavy as concrete. "Emily is safe," he said. "For now. But accidents happen, especially to people who interfere." He pulled out his keys. "Go home. Forget Emily. Forget Brandon. And maybe you'll still have a daughter in a year." He walked to the Mercedes, got in, and drove away without looking back. I stood frozen, heart pounding, the photo still glowing on my phone. Emily looked peaceful. Innocent. Completely unaware someone had stood over her while she slept. I called Alexander. He answered immediately. "Paul, what happened?" Victor cornered me. He knows everything. "They took a picture of Emily inside her apartment." "Jesus!" Alexander exhaled sharply. "Listen, don't go near them. The FBI has enough. We'll have a warrant in 24 to 48 hours. That's too long. Paul, they're watching her. God knows what they'll do. Don't do anything rash. I have to see her. Somewhere public, somewhere safe." "Be careful," he whispered. "These people are dangerous." "I know." I looked at Emily's photo one more time. "I'm coming, sweetheart." My phone buzzed at 10 in the morning. Emily's name on the screen. "Can we talk Riverside Coffee on 5th? 1 hour, please." I grabbed the folder. Alexander had prepared copies of everything. Jessica's photo, Rachel's case file, all the evidence. I arrived early. The coffee shop was busy, full of quiet conversations. I chose a back corner table and waited. Emily walked in at 11. Dark circles under her eyes, hair in a messy ponytail, hands shaking. She slid into the seat across from me. "I don't have long. Brandon thinks I'm at the pharmacy." I opened the folder and slid Jessica Martinez's photo across the table. Emily stared at the photo face, going pale. I slid another photo across. Rachel Bennett, marketing executive. Married Brandon in 2021. He took $12 million. She disappeared 2 years ago. No one's seen her since. "No, Brandon wouldn't." "The insurance papers you signed 3 weeks ago. What did Brandon say they were for?" Her hands froze. "Life insurance. For after the wedding." "They were financial power of attorney documents, Emily. For my settlement money, $15 million. The moment it hits my account, it becomes yours. Then his." The color drained from her face. I watched her remember. Brandon rushing her through the papers, smiling. "Just sign here, honey." "Oh my God," she whispered. "Brandon's been different. she said, suddenly voice shaking. Cold, distant. He tracks my location, took my laptop, checks my phone constantly. Her voice broke. You're right. Oh my God, you're right? We have to get you. The door opened. Brandon walked in, not running, not shouting, just that calm confidence from the wedding. His eyes found our table. His face went cold. Emily, we need to go now. Emily looked up, tears streaming. Is it true? Did you marry me for my father's money? Brandon walked over, picked up the folder, flipped through it. Jessica? Rachel? The documents. Then he threw it on the floor and grabbed Emily's arm. We're leaving. No, Emily tried to pull away. I need to. His grip tightened. He pulled her to her feet. This man has been lying to you. We're going home. I stood. Let her go. Brandon raised his voice so the entire shop could hear. This man has been harassing my wife for days. Someone call security. Heads turned. She's my daughter, I said desperately. He's lying. A security guard appeared. Sir, step back. He's hurting her. I pointed at Brandon's hand on Emily's arm, but Brandon loosened his grip, smiled at the guard. My father-in-law has some issues. Paranoia. We've been very patient. The guard looked between us. Brandon in his expensive suit calm. Me in my wrinkled shirt desperate. The guard stepped toward me. Sir, you need to leave. Emily. She looked back, tears streaming. Dad. Brandon pulled her toward the door. She tried to resist, but he was stronger. Dad, please. The door swung shut. I shoved past the guard and ran outside. Too late. Brandon was forcing Emily into a black SUV. I saw her face through the window, pale and terrified as the car pulled away. I called Alexander. He took her. Brandon found us. Destroyed the files. She believed me, Alexander. She finally believed me, and now the FBI has the warrant. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. They'll get her out. Tomorrow he knows she knows. He'll... 24 hours, Paul, hold on. I hung up staring at the empty street. 24 hours. Later, through the apartment door, Emily heard Brandon's voice, cold and flat. You shouldn't have talked to him, Emily. You've made things very complicated. She tried the handle again, locked from the outside. She was trapped. I didn't sleep. At 5:30 in the morning, Alexander called. They're moving. Meet us at Maple and 3rd, 5 minutes. 3 black SUVs waited when I arrived, agents in tactical vests, checking equipment. A woman in an FBI jacket approached. Mr. Miller, Special Agent Martinez. Your daughter's in 314. Yes, Brandon locked her in from the outside. We'll get her out. She turned to her team. Let's move. We crossed to Brandon's building. My heart hammered. At 314, Agent Martinez knocked hard. FBI federal warrant, open the door. Silence. Brandon Whitmore. We have a warrant, open up. Nothing. She nodded. 2 agents swung a battering ram. 1 hit. 2. On the 3rd, the door crashed inward. FBI hands up. Brandon stood in the living room in sweatpants, face white with shock. Where's Emily? I pushed past an agent. Then I heard pounding. Down the hall, a closed door. I ran, grabbed the handle, locked from outside. She's in here. I kicked. Once. Twice. The frame splintered. 3rd kick, the door crashed open. Emily was on the floor, fist raised from pounding. Face streaked with tears, eyes hollow, still in yesterday's clothes. She looked up. Dad? I dropped to my knees and pulled her into my arms. She collapsed against me, whole body, shaking, and started sobbing. Deep, wrenching sobs. You're safe now, I whispered. You're safe, sweetheart. Her arms wrapped around me, holding on. Behind me, Agent Martinez read Brandon his rights. Brandon Whitmore. You're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. This is insane. Brandon's voice cut in. Emily, don't say anything. Call our lawyer. Emily buried her face in my chest. 2 agents cuffed Brandon. The front door opened. Victor Whitmore walked in and froze. Victor Whitmore. Agent Martinez turned. You're also under arrest. What, no? This was all Brandon's idea. I told him after Rachel to lay low. Dad, shut up, Brandon snarled. Save it for your lawyer. 2 agents cuffed Victor. I helped Emily stand. She swayed, and I caught her wrapping my arm around her shoulders. Agents moved through the apartment, bagging laptops, phones, papers. Alexander appeared beside me. They found everything. Financial records, offshore accounts. He paused. Brandon had a wire transfer scheduled for tomorrow morning. $15 million to the Cayman Islands. My stomach turned. Tomorrow. 1 more day, and the money would have been gone. We've got them, Paul, Alexander said. Solid evidence. Agent Martinez approached. We'll need statements from both of you. Tomorrow. Courthouse, 9 a.m. I nodded. Whatever you need. I guided Emily toward the door. As we passed Brandon in handcuffs, he looked up. This isn't over, he said, voice cold. Emily flinched. I pulled her closer and kept walking. Outside, morning sun was rising, cool, clean air. Emily stopped on the sidewalk and broke down crying again, her whole body shaking. I held her tight. You're safe. You're safe now. When she finally pulled back, some of the terror had left her eyes. Alexander appeared. Paul. I looked up. The trial starts tomorrow, he said. Are you ready? I looked down at Emily, at my daughter who was finally safe, then back at Alexander. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. Brandon Whitmore, you have been found guilty of wire fraud, money laundering conspiracy, and unlawful imprisonment. You are sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Brandon's face went white, then red with rage. This is your fault, he shouted at Emily. Two marshals grabbed his arms. Emily's hand tightened in mine. The judge turned to Victor. Victor Whitmore, conspiracy and witness intimidation, 7 years in federal prison. This was all him. Victor pointed at Brandon. After Rachel, I told him to stop. Enough! The judge's gavel came down. Take them away. Emily exhaled beside me. It's over. I squeezed her hand. It's over. 1 week later, the civil court annulled Emily's marriage. She walked out legally free. The $15 million settlement arrived shortly after. After 3 years, the money that had caused so much pain finally meant freedom. 6 months later, I stood behind the counter of Miller's Bakery, watching Emily arrange croissants in the display case. The small shop wasn't fancy, just warm lighting, a few tables, and the smell of fresh bread. These croissants are incredible, Mrs. Pierce said, one of our regulars. Emily's recipe. She's the real baker. Emily smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in years. The door chimed. Josh Martinez walked in carrying daisies. 29 third-grade teacher. He'd been coming in for coffee for months, talking to Emily for weeks. You didn't have to, Emily said, smiling. I wanted to. You deserve them. I turned away to give them privacy. Emily deserved someone who brought flowers, just because. Someone kind. The door chimed again. Alexander Cross walked in. Usual Paul. I started his Americano. How's business? Good. Not too busy to check on my favorite baker. He glanced at Emily and Josh. She looks happy. She's getting there. Healing. And you? Better than good. I speak twice a week now. Community centers, libraries. Financial safety, protecting families. I handed him the coffee. I showed Jessica's and Rachel's photos. They deserve to be remembered. The Whitmores, still in prison, appeals denied. They're not getting out. Good. Some days I still saw Brandon's face, heard Victor's threat. But those memories were fading, replaced by better ones. Emily's laugh, fresh bread, customers who became friends. I thought about that wedding, standing in that ballroom called a pathetic beggar, the shame, rage, helplessness. I'd lost everything once, nearly lost my daughter. But I'd gotten back what mattered. Family was everything. When something felt wrong, I'd trusted that instinct. Justice took time and persistence, but it came. Pain became purpose. Emily caught my eye and smiled. Josh made her laugh. Alexander enjoyed his croissant. This was my life now, not perfect. Scarred, but free. An elderly woman approached. Mr. Miller, I heard your talk last week about scams. I wanted to thank you. I almost fell for something similar. Your story helped me recognize the signs. My throat tightened. I'm glad. That's why I tell it. She ordered coffee and a muffin. As I handed them over, I thought about all the Jessicas and Rachels out there, all the Emilys who might not have someone willing to fight, all the Pauls who might give up. If my story could help even one person protect their family, recognize the warning signs, find the courage to fight, then every moment of pain, every second of fear, every sleepless night was worth it. I looked at Emily laughing with Josh, at Alexander relaxed and smiling, at the bakery we'd built from the worst year of our lives. Worth it, every single moment. Looking back now, I realize how close I came to losing everything that mattered. This true story taught me lessons I wish I'd learned earlier, lessons I share now in my grandpa stories to anyone who will listen. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the warning signs because you're afraid of being wrong. I saw how Brandon isolated Emily, how he rushed the wedding, how that insurance paperwork felt off. But I stayed quiet, afraid of pushing my daughter away. That silence almost cost her life. Don't be like me. Don't underestimate evil dressed in expensive suits. Brandon and his father looked respectable, sounded educated, seemed legitimate. I judged them by their appearance and nearly lost my daughter to their carefully crafted lies. Don't be like me and wait for someone else to save your family. I wanted to believe the police would help, that the system would protect Emily automatically. But justice required action, required Alexander's resources, and the FBI's authority, and my willingness to fight even when I felt powerless. The lessons from this true story are simple, but vital. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Investigate. Ask questions. Don't let fear of conflict silence your protective instincts. Your family's safety matters more than keeping peace with predators. And when you're overwhelmed, when the enemy seems too powerful, remember what I learned. God puts people in your path at exactly the right moment. Alexander appeared when I needed him most, not by accident, but by grace. These grandpa stories I tell now aren't just mine. They're warnings lessons purchased with tears and fear and sleepless nights. That's why I keep sharing these grandpa stories wherever I can, because prevention saves lives. If my true story helps you recognize danger before it's too late, if it gives you courage to fight for someone you love, then share it. Comment below with your own experiences. Subscribe so more families can learn these lessons before they need them the way I did. Because the best victory isn't surviving evil, it's preventing it.